E-commerce business owners know a successful business keeps customers happy. That's why smart retailers use ShipStation. Turn shoppers into loyal customers with cheaper, faster, and better shipping. Manage all your orders and returns in one place and save up to 90% on rates from all the global carriers. Go to shipstation.com/program to sign up for your free trial. No credit card required, and you can cancel anytime. That's shipstation.com/program.
A warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you, as we're going to be joined in a few minutes by one of our good friends, Curtis Rogers. He does such amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. Have to talk a little Big Ten and a little bit about the West Coast teams with him. Additionally, we're going to take a look at some teams that have a unique style and how that presents so many challenges for teams, especially in non-conference play, trying to be able to prepare for that, how that can be a little bit of a boom or bust sort of scenario for a lot of these teams as well when they do go out on a limb, and we're going to be chatting with him about some of the teams that he's feeling bullish/bearish on as well. Always a great time to be able to have Curtis aboard, and he'll be joining me in a few minutes. If you do ever have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters the mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And while I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever, and that 100% of gambling-related transactions do get approved. When you go to edgeboost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That's going to get you a dollar-for-dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. And with Curtis, he does an amazing job taking a look at this great game of basketball, and you're going to be able to get, for the next few months here, a lot of these two-part chats, and we're going to do a lot more conference previews as well. You got the MAC with 1A yesterday. I plan on doing the MEAC and the Missouri Valley Conference within the next 7 days. We are now getting into a lot of two-part conversations and a lot of conference previews on this podcast leading up to the upcoming college basketball season, mainly because we're just not getting a lot of news in college basketball right now. I'm keeping my finger on the pulse if there's any late transfers, if there's any injuries that pop up from the summer workouts and everything like that, but it's a little bit barren on that front. So right now it's hunting and gathering, being able to know what we're getting out of these teams and being able to get you guys some good information to be able to crush it this season. And I know that Curtis, he does an amazing job of being able to gauge this great sport and does a little bit of everything. For those that like baseball, he does a great job as a pre- and post-game host for the Seattle Mariners over there at 710 Seattle Sports as well. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at a kid from Kent. And Curtis, it's always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, always happy to hop on with you, talk some college hoops, no matter the time of year. And we're inching ever so closely to the start of the regular season. Just, 2-3 months away? So it's within sight. It's within reach. I'm excited for it. I know you are too. I can't wait to talk about it.
Absolutely. And something I wanted to talk with you about today is teams that have just a very unique style, because you cover one that always is very unique in Gonzaga, because nobody can ever slow down that offense. It's one that is very complex. It's very hard to be able to prepare for. And just how do you take a look at some of these teams that they are a little bit more unique, and much like a Gonzaga, maybe they specialize on one side of the ball, whether that be offensively like the Bulldogs or defensively like we always see with a team like Houston?
Obviously, Gonzaga's play style has been the signature of that program for going on almost 30 years now. I mean, it was 98 when they had their first NCAA tournament run. We're just a couple of years away from 2028, meaning Gonzaga's been around for 3 decades. It's no longer a mystery as to why they're so good. And to me, when a team has such a defined style, it can be one of the great benefits to a program, and it can also be something that can really hurt a team. Let's say it gets into a scenario where, you're trailing by double digits and you are so stuck to your style that you need to change things up and really get things going. Or if you're like in Gonzaga's case, I know Arizona runs a similar style because Tommy Lloyd being a disciple of Mark Few, you kind of wonder, if a game gets into a rock fight situation where it's 51-50 with 2 minutes to go, is this team equipped to play a slow it down style? Are they equipped to play a game in the half court? So it is great when you're able to dictate the pace of a game. It's great when you're able to call your shots and be able to force the other team to play into your strengths. But again, it can really hurt you if you're going up against a team that does not want to dictate or that does not let you dictate that pace. I think back to, I think it was Tony Bennett's final game at Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, that first 4 game
Oh,
where the Cavaliers were down huge, and
they went a full 45 minutes of actual real time without scoring a point.
exactly, they were so far down, and yet they still wanted to run things through their offense. And it's like, you're going to run out of time, guys. You don't have enough time left on the game clock to run your offense and to get back in this game. So it's such a good thing when it works to your school's benefit, but when it doesn't, it can make for some pretty miserable basketball to watch.
Oh, there's no question about it. It is so interesting to take a look at teams like that. And I mean, you get an up close seat to one of the more unique styles in all of college basketball as well, because you cover Seattle, obviously being out there in Seattle with 710 Seattle Sports, as we do have Curtis Rogers joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And they always have to play against Abilene Christian, a team that they sell out to generate turnovers. They're going to gamble for those turnovers. How do you take a look at a team like an Abilene Christian whenever Seattle has to play them? Because I always think that that's one of their more, shall we say, funky and unique games of the year.
It always is. And because of that, you can never really go into those games with, tremendous amount of expectation. If Abilene Christian is able to play the game that they want to play, then that is going to create a lot of havoc. That is going to create a lot of craziness, things that you can't really prepare for. And that's another beauty of having such a unique style, is that, your opponent is usually preparing for a pretty standard set of offense. I mean, every offense and every defense kind of is branching out of the same kind of, basic sets and basic structures and whatnot. But it's the ones that have adapted to where they are now, and being able to be unique in that way, that can cause a lot of problems. It reminds me of, teams that are so used to playing offense against a man-to-man defense, and then all of a sudden a team switches to zone for just like a couple minutes, and the team on offense looks completely lost. It's as though they've never seen it before. Preparing for things that you don't normally prepare for, that can throw any school off. It kind of reminds me, Greg, of like in college football, where the service academy teams run the triple option. And even though their rosters are filled with guys that are, 50, 60 pounds less than what the opponent is, they tend to have a lot of success, because who's running the triple option these days? Nobody is. And so, when you're preparing for one offense and you go up against a completely separate one, something unlike you've ever seen, or in this case, going up against a defense that's unlike anything you've ever seen before, it can really create a lot of headaches.
Yep, it certainly can, and it's always a lot of fun to be able to take a look at teams like an Abilene Christian that plays such a unique style. Obviously, Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin always comes to mind when you think of teams that generate turnovers as well, so that's always a lot of fun to be able to do. And how do we take a look at Seattle for the upcoming season? Because they're in a WAC that is now without Grand Canyon, and it feels like it might be the most open conference in all of college basketball, because Utah Valley has really, shall we say, risen to being consistently a top 3, top 4 team, even ever since they've lost Mark Manson. They've been one of the better teams out there in the WAC. It's a swan song season for Cal Baptist, who they now have the opportunity to be able to bust through and actually make the NCAA tournament if they play that well. But without Grand Canyon, the team that everyone assumed was going to be able to win the conference, it now looks like it's going to be very, very open, and it's going to be out there for the taking.
Yeah, it's going to be really anybody's conference at this point. I mean, and with the conference numbers being so small, that's going to allow for a lot of these teams to play each other quite a bit during the regular season. It'll also allow for a lot more bye games too in the non-conference. So, it's going to be maybe harder to get a good read on who the best teams are in this conference. But Utah Valley, of the teams that are left in the WAC, I mean, they have been consistently good. I really like what that program has kind of become over the last decade or so. Tarleton State, they're a team that, I mean, they are still trying to gain their footing for sure, but I think that's a program that is definitely, worth paying attention to soon, especially as, they get more and more just kind of entrenched in the Division I era. The WAC right now, Greg, it is so wide open with everybody kind of departing, everybody kind of, saying their goodbyes. You mentioned Cal Baptist. That's a team definitely worth looking at as well. So I think right now Utah Valley is the one that I'm kind of looking at and saying, yeah, I think they are going to be one that is definitely going to be competing for a WAC title this season. But I mean, boy, with what that conference looks like now compared to what it looked like just a couple of years ago, I mean, boy, it is anybody's game in that conference.
Yep, and with Seattle, they officially joined the WCC along with Grand Canyon leaving because everyone talked about the departure of the Grand Canyon. Not a lot of people realized that Seattle was going to leave as well, but that was supposed to happen next year. It happened right away. I don't know why the WAC just let them go willy-nilly right away and didn't try to retain them for one more year, but now they're in the WCC. We need to talk about this with our good friend Curtis because it has went under the radar. I think that it's going to be a very interesting year in the WCC. We'll talk about some of those middle teams. We'll talk a little bit about Gonzaga, and I have to ask Curtis about a team or two that he's feeling bearish on for the upcoming season. That's up next right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VC Family Podcast.
E-commerce business owners know a successful business keeps customers happy. That's why smart retailers use ShipStation. Turn shoppers into loyal customers with cheaper, faster, and better shipping. Manage all your orders and returns in one place and save up to 90% on rates from all the global carriers. Go to shipstation.com/program to sign up for your free trial. No credit card required, and you can cancel anytime. That's shipstation.com/program.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VC Family Podcast, rejoined by our man Curtis Rogers, who does such excellent work taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. He does a little bit of everything over there at 710 Seattle Sports. He also does the pre- and post-game hosting for the Seattle Mariners. You're able to catch him on the old Twitter/X at A Kid From Kent, along with Instagram. And Curtis, we left off by talking about the forgotten team that left the WCC. That would be Seattle, and I do want to get your thoughts on this move. Obviously, there's a top of the WCC with Gonzaga. I would throw San Francisco in there as that number 3 team, and the clear number 2 being St. Mary's. And then after that, it feels like it's a mismatch with perhaps Santa Clara being able to bust through. But I mean, it feels like it's been a revolving door for those teams like number 4, number 5, number 6.
Yeah, Seattle U is going to be an interesting one to watch, Greg, because it looked like they had been building towards a really good run. And I still think Chris Victor is a really good coach. And I think Seattle U is very lucky to have him as their head coach, especially coming off of the 23-24 season where they were CBI champions, beating High Point in the championship game. It looked like, oh my goodness, they're going to potentially compete for an NCAA tournament berth the following season. Last year, just things could not get going for them, where they had to kind of dig themselves out of a big hole. Finished just 14-18 last year, kind of leaving a lot to be desired with that Seattle U ball club. I thought they were going to be a lot better than what they were. Now they go to a conference with a much better talent pool than what the WAC was and kind of what the WAC is. I think it's going to be an uphill climb this year for Seattle U. I think just looking at their facilities compared to the rest of the WCCs, they're definitely lagging behind. I've always kind of wondered how much can they get out of the Connolly Center, which is their on-campus gym, which only seats about 1,000 people, especially now that you're playing in the WCC. You're probably going to need to have a bigger arena. When I get that Gonzaga is going to be in your conference for one season because they're off to the Pac-12 after this year. But, I mean, look, when you're playing Gonzaga, that's going to pack any gym out. And I don't think Gonzaga wants their games, especially in a big recruiting base, a big alumni base, as the city of Seattle is for them. I don't think they want their games in a 1,000-seat arena. So I would imagine there's Climate Pledge Arena, which is nearby in downtown Seattle. It seats about 18,000. I don't know if Seattle is going to be packing out that many people in their games, but I think you got to kind of look at other options right now if you're the Redhawks, because you got to be able to compete with the teams in your conference now in the WCC. You're not in the WAC anymore. You're with some pretty, established basketball programs, not just on the West Coast, but established nationally. So it's going to be a much bigger challenge for them, but I think they're ready for it because they would not have made this jump to the WCC if they didn't feel like they were ready.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that it's going to be a really interesting conference in general because obviously Gonzaga is Gonzaga. They're going to be right there with St. Mary's at the top, which I think that Gonzaga is your clear number one this year. St. Mary's looking like they're going to be a clear number two. But how do you take a look at more of those, shall we say, mid-tier teams? Because again, I do think that San Francisco really formulating themselves as that number three team, but you still have Oregon State in the mix. You still have Washington State in the mix as well. But as we know, Washington State loses so much from a season ago. Same with Oregon State. And it's just such a unique conference with those two teams that are going to be moved to the Pac-12 next year, still in there.
It is. It's going to be very odd to see just kind of how this conference pieces itself together this season. I think there's still a lot of really, really good talent in this conference, even with so many players from Gonzaga moving on to the pros or moving elsewhere. I look at especially like St. Mary's and how good they are, especially Paulius Morauskas. He's been just a phenomenal player to watch. But USF, they've obviously have made a lot of strides. They've put a lot of good coaches out there. Kyle Smith, Todd Golden, to name a couple. That's a heck of a pipeline that they've got going there. Hopefully they can continue and build something more because I've always felt like San Francisco deserves to be a little bit better than what they've been. Pacific now in the WCC, a nice little addition for them. They haven't been as competitive as they used to be, like about 20 years ago or so, but definitely a team that catches the eye. They've had a couple of spurts of success in that conference. I'm looking at a team like Santa Clara too. They've just had a really good run here, putting together a couple of really competitive teams, sending guys to the league. Jalen Williams, Brandon Podjimski. Hey, they even had Adama Ball there for a stretch. So I'm kind of looking at that middle grouping of the WCC. I think it's going to be a competitive conference for sure. I think Gonzaga is still the clear-cut favorite this year, but I think there might be a little bit more competition amongst that bottom half to sort of the middle grouping of this conference.
And the way that Herb Sandek has been able to do a solid job over at Santa Clara, who does return quite a few guys like Brenton Namper, Jake Singer, and company. Hopefully I said that last name correct. Those guys are going to be pretty rock solid, so I think that they're going to be a lot of fun to be able to look at. And Curtis, this is always one of my favorite questions whenever you join me here in the off season. And typically it's, what team are you feeling a little bit bullish on? What team do you think is a little bit undervalued? But we're going to reverse it on you. Who's a team that you think is maybe getting a little bit too much love? And maybe it's a team that as the offseason goes along, maybe you felt good about them towards the front of it, but now you're starting to sour on them a little bit.
Being a hater, Greg, that's one of my favorite things to be. Absolutely one of my favorite things to be. Teams that I'm kind of looking at right now, Greg, is as ones where I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think they can be good. I was really high on them last year, and that would be St. John's. And the Johnnies brought in, obviously they hit the portal hard as they are wont to do, as they always have done under Rick Pitino. But I just felt like the ending to last season and just kind of how they ended up kind of moving on from RJ Luis, who was phenomenal for them last year. I get that Luis went on to the NBA, but to me, it just kind of felt like there was a little bit of meat left on that bone. St. John's, to me, I would expect a bit of a step back from a year ago. I know that the Big East wasn't as competitive as it usually is, but that to me, I think is a conference that's going to see some improvement, obviously, with teams like Georgetown getting better under Ed Cooley. You've got teams like UConn continuing to be as great as they have been over the last few years. To me, I think St. John's, I think they're still going to be good. I think they're still going to be a tournament team, but I just don't see them being a 2 seed or anything like that coming into this season. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher of a go for them. I really like what Rick Pitino has done there, and I think it's great that St. John's is back to being hyper competitive and being a team you have to make note of out there in the Big East. But I think this year might be a little bit tougher for them just based off of all the talent that they lost.
Yeah, it might be a little bit difficult for them. They did certainly improve the three-point shooting, and that was one of their big bugaboos last season, so that does
hard to be any worse.
Yeah, that was relatively brutal to say the least. So they were able to improve on that front. And we always improve as a podcast when you're aboard, Curtis, because you do such an amazing job. Take a look at this great game of college basketball. Let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, we're just getting closer and closer to the season out here. Obviously, following what the Huskies have been doing and how they've been able to hit the portal hard this offseason. Washington State following what they're doing, second year under David Riley. And then obviously Gonzaga, the talk of the college basketball world here in the Pacific Northwest forever and ever. We will definitely be covering them as well, but also, keeping our finger on the pulse everywhere else. SeattleSports.com is the place where you want to be. You can check us out on the YouTubes as well at Seattle Sports. And then you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at A Kid From Ken. And Greg, always happy to hop on with you and talk college basketball, no matter the time of year.
It is always great to have Curtis Rogers aboard. He does such an amazing job of taking a look at this amazing game of college basketball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. So big thanks to Curtis for joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And if you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. We certainly are in more of the, shall we say, gathering stages of the offseason, because now we know what we are getting with regards to these rosters are all set. So not a lot of news and notes coming out. I'll obviously keep you guys up to date as we do get those news and notes, but going to be getting a lot of two-part chats like we had today, and conference previews are going to be coming hot and heavy. Expect the MEAC and the Missouri Valley Conference within the next few days, so you can mark that on your calendar, and you can mark on your calendar that I will be with you guys every single day on these podcasts, regular season and off-season. Really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
E-commerce business owners know a successful business keeps customers happy. That's why smart retailers use ShipStation. Turn shoppers into loyal customers with cheaper, faster, and better shipping. Manage all your orders and returns in one place and save up to 90% on rates from all the global carriers. Go to ShipStation.com/program to sign up for your free trial. No credit card required, and you can cancel anytime. That's ShipStation.com/program.